My name is Lina.
I am 23 years old. And on March 15, 2018, at exactly 6 a.m., I was supposed to become the wife of a man who was 81 years old.
Amanuno had met exactly twice in my life. Amanolde to be my great-grandfather.
But by the time the sun rose that morning, I was already gone. And the only reason I'm alive today to tell you this story is because Jesus Christ opened a door that no human being could have opened. Let me take you back to where this nightmare began.
To the golden cage uno col dome.
I grew up in a palace. Not the kind you see in fairy tales where princesses are cherished and protected. The kind where princesses are inventory. Assets. Political currency to be traded when the price is right. My father ruled over a region in one of the wealthiest Gulf states. Our family name carried weight that could move governments and collapse economies. We had 11 palaces across 3 countries. Marble floors imported from Carrara, Italy, so polished you could see your reflection as clearly as a mirror. Fountains that ran not with water, but with rosewater in the summer heat. Chandeliers with crystals from Austria that cost more than most people earn in a lifetime. I had never cooked a meal.
Never cleaned a room.
Never walked anywhere without at least 2 attendants following 3 steps behind. But here's what I also never did. I never chose my own clothes without approval. Never left the palace grounds without armed escorts and my father's explicit permission. Never spoke to a man outside my family. Never made a single decision about my own life. I was 16 years old, and I had never been alone for more than 10 minutes in my entire life. My father had 4 wives. I had 23 half-siblings. The palace was a maze of separate wings, separate lives, separate heartbreaks. I watched my mothers, my aunts, my older cousins, all living the same scripted existence.
Beautiful cage. Silent suffering.
Prayers that echoed in empty rooms and seemed to bounce back unanswered. I performed wudu 5 times a day. Wudu is the ritual washing Muslims must complete before each of the 5 daily prayers, cleansing the hands, face, arms, and feet with water. I would feel the cold water run over my skin, wash my face, my arms, my feet, and then I would press my forehead to the prayer mat and beg Allah for purpose, for meaning, for anything beyond this beautiful prison. But I felt nothing. Just silence. Just the cold marble beneath my knees and the crushing weight of a future I could already see stretching out before me like a life sentence. Have you ever had everything and nothing at the same time? Have you ever lived in luxury so complete that you had servants to put on your shoes, but felt so hollow inside that you wondered if you even existed at all? I turned 16 on January 4, 2018.
In my culture, 16 is the age when a girl becomes a woman.
The age when she can be given in marriage. I knew this day was coming.
Every girl in my family knew.
We just didn't know when, or to whom, or whether we would have any say in the matter at all. My birthday celebration was held in the palace's grand hall. 600 guests. A cake flown in from Paris that cost $30,000. I wore a gown encrusted with emeralds that matched my eyes. Everyone told me I looked like a princess from a storybook. I felt like an animal being paraded before potential buyers. And I was right to feel that way. Because that night, after the guests had gone and the servants had cleared away the remains of the celebration, my father summoned me to his private study. I can still smell that room. Oud wood and tobacco. Leather-bound books in Arabic, English, and French that no one ever read. My father sat behind a desk carved from a single piece of mahogany, his face illuminated by a lamp with a jade-green shade. He didn't ask me to sit. He simply looked at me with the same expression he used when inspecting a new racehorse or reviewing a business contract. "Lina," he said, "you have brought honor to this family by growing into a woman of beauty and grace. Tomorrow, Sheikh Abdullah bin Rashid will visit us to formalize the marriage agreement. The wedding will take place in 6 months. You will conduct yourself with dignity and gratitude. This alliance will strengthen our family's position in the region for the next generation. Do you understand?"
Do uno understand?
Those 3 words. As if understanding had anything to do with it. As if my understanding, my feelings, my entire existence mattered at all in this equation. "Yes, father," I whispered, because that was the only answer permitted. "Good. You may go." I walked back to my chambers on legs that didn't feel like my own. My attendants followed silently. They had been through this themselves, or watched their sisters go through it. Everyone knew what this meant. Everyone accepted it as inevitable.
The way you accept gravity or the rising of the sun.
Sheikh Abdullah was 81 years old. He had buried 3 wives already. He had 17 children, some of them older than my own father. He walked with a cane. He had liver spots on his hands and a breathing problem that made him wheeze when he spoke. And he was one of the most powerful men in the Gulf region, a close advisor to the royal family of our nation, a man whose support could make or break political careers. My father was trading me for influence. And there was absolutely nothing I could do about it. The next 6 months were a countdown to the end of my life. That's how I thought of it. Not as a wedding.
As an execution date.
Every day, I was measured, fitted, instructed, prepared. Teams of women came to teach me how to manage a household, how to please an elderly husband, how to conduct myself as the wife of a prominent sheikh. They spoke in euphemisms and coded language, but the message was always the same. Your life is no longer yours. Your body is no longer yours. Your purpose is to serve, to obey, and to produce heirs if Allah wills it. I tried to talk to my mother. Once. Just once. I found her in her private garden, sitting among the jasmine flowers she loved, and I knelt beside her and took her hand. "Mama," I said, and my voice broke on the word. "Mama, please. I don't want this. Please talk to Father. Please." She pulled her hand away as if I had burned her. Her eyes filled with tears, but her voice was hard. "Do you think I wanted my marriage, Lena? Do you think any of us wanted this? This is the life Allah has written for us. This is our duty. You will do as your father commands, and you will be grateful that you are marrying into such a powerful family. Now go. And do not speak of this again." I tried my aunts. I tried my older cousins who had gone through the same thing. They all said the same thing.
"This is our destiny. This is what women do.
You will learn to accept it. You will survive it. We all have. But I didn't want to survive. I wanted to live. Is there a difference? Yes. There is a universe of difference. Surviving is breathing while your soul dies. Living is having a purpose, a choice, a voice that matters. Could you accept a future like that? Could you smile and bow and thank everyone for arranging your own imprisonment? Could you watch the days tick down to the moment when your entire existence would be reduced to serving a man you didn't know, didn't love, and would never choose? The wedding date was set for March 15th. It was now mid-February. 4 weeks left. I had stopped eating.
Food tasted like sand.
I had stopped sleeping more than a few hours a night. I would lie awake staring at the painted ceiling of my room, at the ornate patterns in gold and blue that probably cost more than most people's houses, and I would think about running away. But where would I run?
I had no money of my own.
No passport.
No identification documents.
I had never been alone in public. I had no friends outside the palace. I didn't even know how to drive a car. Every door was watched. Every exit was monitored. There were guards, cameras, protocols. My father's security system was designed to keep threats out, but it worked just as well to keep me in. So I prayed. I prayed the way I had been taught since childhood. I performed every ritual perfectly. I recited the prayers in Arabic, bowing, prostrating, begging Allah to change my father's heart, to send some disaster that would cancel the wedding, to do something, anything to save me from this fate. But heaven was silent. And every day brought me one day closer to March 15th. 3 weeks before the wedding, we took a trip to London. One last journey before I would belong entirely to Sheikh Abdullah. My father took his first wife and me, along with an entourage of bodyguards, assistants, and female attendants. We stayed at a 5-star hotel in Knightsbridge. We shopped on Bond Street and Harrods. My father bought me jewelry worth hundreds of thousands of pounds. Wedding gifts, he called them.
Payment for my compliance.
On our 3rd day in London, we went to Harrods. The massive department store was a maze of luxury and excess. We were shopping for perfumes on the ground floor when something strange happened. I needed to use the restroom. My usual attendant, Fatima, was supposed to accompany me, but she had stayed behind to carry the shopping bags.
For just a moment, in the confusion of the crowded store, I found myself walking alone down a corridor toward the restrooms.
And I got lost. I took a wrong turn and ended up in the book section instead. Rows and rows of books in every language. And for some reason I still don't fully understand. I stopped walking. I stood there looking at the shelves, and my eyes landed on a book with a simple cover. No crosses. No obvious Christian imagery. Just a plain burgundy cover with gold lettering. Holy Bible, Arabic English Parallel Edition.
I had never touched a Bible in my life.
In my world, the Bible was the corrupted scripture of the infidels, Christians who had lost their way and worshipped Jesus as God instead of recognizing him as merely a prophet. We were taught that reading the Bible was dangerous, that it would confuse us, lead us away from the true path of Islam. But standing there in that London bookstore, I felt something I had not felt in months. Curiosity. A tiny spark of something that felt almost like hope. What if there were answers in this book? What if the God of the Christians was different somehow? What if he listened? I picked up the Bible. I looked around. No one was watching. The bookstore clerk was helping someone else. My attendants had not yet noticed I was missing. In a moment of impulse that I still believe was divinely orchestrated, I opened my handbag, slid the Bible inside among the tissue paper and makeup, and walked quickly toward the restroom. My heart was pounding so hard I thought everyone in the store could hear it. But no one stopped me. No one saw. Fatima found me a moment later, scolded me gently for wandering off, and escorted me back to the perfume department. I spent the rest of the afternoon in a daze, hyper-aware of the weight in my handbag, terrified someone would discover it, exhilarated by what I had done. I had stolen a Bible. I had committed what my family would consider an unthinkable betrayal. And I couldn't wait to read it. That night, back at our London hotel, I waited until everyone was asleep. My room was connected to my father's suite, but there was a door I could lock from the inside. At 1 a.m, I locked the door, turned on a single lamp beside my bed, and pulled the Bible out of my suitcase where I had hidden it under layers of clothes. I opened it randomly. The pages fell to the Gospel of John. I started reading in Arabic, and the words washed over me like cool water after a lifetime in the desert.
In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God.
I read about Jesus turning water into wine at a wedding. I read about Jesus talking to a Samaritan woman at a well, a woman with a scandalous past, and treating her not with contempt but with kindness and truth. I read about Jesus defending a woman caught in adultery, shaming the men who wanted to stone her, saying, "Let him who is without sin cast the first stone." Have you ever read something that made you feel like someone was speaking directly to your soul? Like the words were written specifically for you, across centuries and continents, just to reach you in your moment of deepest need? I read until 3 a.m. Then I hid the Bible at the bottom of my suitcase again, turned off the lamp, and lay in the darkness with tears streaming down my face. Because for the first time in my life, I had read about a God who cared about women, who spoke to women, who defended women, who saw women as human beings with value and dignity, not as property to be owned and controlled. We returned home to the Gulf 3 days later. I smuggled the Bible back through customs in my suitcase. No one checks the luggage of a princess. I hid it in my room at the palace, at the very back of my closet, behind boxes of shoes I never wore. And every night, after the palace went silent, after the guards changed shifts at midnight, I would pull out the Bible and read by the dim light of my phone, the pages illuminated just enough to see the words. I read about Jesus healing the sick,
Rising the dead, forgiving sins, calling disciples.
I read the Sermon on the Mount. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are the meek. I had been taught that meekness was weakness, that submission was a woman's duty. But Jesus was saying something different. He was saying that the powerless, the overlooked, the oppressed, they were the ones God blessed. They were the ones who mattered to him. I read about Mary Magdalene, who followed Jesus and was the first person to see him after his resurrection. Not Peter. Not John.
A woman.
I read about Mary and Martha, whom Jesus loved and visited. I read about the woman with the issue of blood who touched Jesus' robe and was healed, and how Jesus called her daughter and commended her faith. Every page I turned revealed a God who was nothing like the distant harsh Allah I had prayed to all my life. This God was personal. This God saw individuals, not just masses.
This God loved.
Not with conditions and rules and endless requirements, but with a love that pursued broken people and called them his own. 2 months before my wedding, I started praying to Jesus. Tentatively at first. Almost apologetically, as if I were betraying everything I had ever known. Which of course I was. Jesus, I would whisper into the darkness of my room, if you are real, if you are who this book says you are, please help me. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to escape this. But if you can hear me, if you care about me, please show me a way out. I did this every night for 2 weeks. And I felt nothing. No voice. No vision.
No miraculous intervention. Just the same crashing reality. 3 weeks until my wedding.
Then 2 weeks. Then 10 days. And then I had the dream. It was 7 weeks before the wedding. April 28th, 2018. I remember the date because I wrote it down the moment I woke up. I had gone to bed exhausted, drained from another day of wedding preparations, fittings for my bridal gown, meetings with the wedding planner. I fell asleep praying the same desperate prayer I had prayed every night. Jesus, please help me. Please. And then I was standing in a room filled with light. Not sunlight.
Not electric light. Something else.
Something that felt alive and warm and impossibly bright, but didn't hurt my eyes. And in the center of that light was a man. I knew immediately it was Jesus. I don't know how I knew. I just knew. He looked at me, and I have never in my life felt so completely seen. Not examined like my father examined me. Not evaluated like the women who were preparing me for marriage. Seen. Known.
Understood down to the smallest hidden corner of my soul.
He smiled at me. And then he spoke. His voice was gentle but absolutely certain, like the foundation of the universe was speaking. Lena, he said, and hearing him say my name made me start crying. You were not created to be the property of men.
You are my daughter.
My beloved. I have seen every tear you have cried. I have heard every prayer you have whispered. And I have a way out for you. But you must trust me completely. Even when you cannot see the path. Even when it seems impossible. I will open a door that no man can shut.
Do you trust me?
I fell to my knees in the dream. Yes, I said.
Yes, I trust you.
Please. Save me. He reached out his hand toward me, and I woke up.
I sat up in my bed, breathing hard, tears streaming down my face.
The dream had been so vivid, so real, that for a moment I looked around expecting to still see the light. But I was back in my room. The palace was silent. It was 4:17 a.m. according to the clock on my nightstand. But something had changed. I felt different. For the first time in 6 months, I felt peace. Not because my circumstances had changed.
The wedding was still happening.
I was still trapped. But I felt, deep in my chest, a certainty that I was not alone. That Jesus had heard me. That he had a plan. I pulled out the Bible and found the book of Exodus. The story of Moses and the Israelites escaping from Egypt.
God parting the Red Sea.
Making a way where there was no way. And I realized, this is what Jesus was promising me.
A way out. An impossible escape.
From that night on, I prayed differently. Not with desperation but with trust. I didn't know how Jesus would save me. I didn't know when. But I believed he would. I had to believe. Because the alternative was to give up entirely. The wedding preparations continued. 5 weeks left. 4 weeks. 3 weeks. My bridal gown arrived. A monstrosity of white silk and gold thread and pearls that probably cost more than a house. I was fitted for it 3 times. It fit perfectly. Like a burial shroud tailored exactly to my measurements. 2 weeks before the wedding, disaster struck. Her name was Aisha. She was one of my personal attendants, responsible for cleaning my room, arranging my clothes, preparing my bath. She had worked for my family for 8 years. I thought I could trust her. I was wrong. It was a Wednesday afternoon. I had gone to have tea with one of my aunts in another wing of the palace. Aisha was in my room, doing her usual cleaning. And she found the Bible. I had hidden it under my mattress. Not a good hiding place, I know, but where else could I put it? Every drawer, every closet, everything in my room was subject to inspection, rearrangement, cleaning. The mattress had seemed safe. It wasn't. When I returned to my room an hour later, Aisha was gone. The Bible was gone. And I knew, with a sickening certainty that made my legs almost give out beneath me, that my life was about to implode. I didn't have to wait long. 20 minutes later, my oldest brother, Khalid, came to my door. His face was twisted with rage and disgust. He held the Bible in his hand like it was a dead rat. "Is this yours?" he demanded. I couldn't speak. I just stared at it. Is this yours? He shouted. Yes, I whispered. He grabbed my arm, dragged me out of my room, down 3 flights of stairs, through corridors where servants and relatives stopped and stared, all the way to my father's study. He shoved me through the door so hard I stumbled and fell to my knees on the Persian rug. My father was behind his desk. Khalid threw the Bible onto the desk between us.
Shiesa kafir, Khalid spat.
The word kafir is an Arabic term meaning infidel or disbeliever, someone who has rejected Islam. It's one of the worst insults you can use in a Muslim household. She has a Christian Bible hidden in her room. She has been reading this filth. She has betrayed our faith, betrayed our family. She has brought shame on our entire house. My father picked up the Bible with 2 fingers, as if it might contaminate him, and stared at it. Then he looked at me, still kneeling on the floor. His eyes were cold. Colder than I had ever seen them. Is this true? His voice was quiet. That was worse than shouting. Father, Is this true? Yes.
Silence.
The kind of silence that feels like the air has been sucked out of the room and replaced with something poisonous. Have you renounced Islam? This was the question. The only question that mattered.
In my culture, in my world, leaving Islam is apostasy.
Apostasy can be punishable by death under Islamic law in some regions. At the very least, it means total ostracism, disownment, being cut off from everything and everyone you have ever known.
I should have lied.
I should have said no, said it was just curiosity, said I would never abandon the faith. But I looked at my father, and I looked at the Bible on his desk, and I thought about Jesus in my dream, and I couldn't deny him. I believe Jesus is the Son of God, I said quietly. I believe he died for my sins. I believe he is Lord.
Khalid made a sound like a growl. My father stood up slowly.
Get out of my sight, he said. Khalid, lock her in her room. Post guards. She speaks to no one.
She sees no one.
I will decide what to do with her.
They dragged me back to my room.
2 guards were posted outside my door. The windows were already barred, as they were in all rooms where unmarried women slept. My phone was confiscated. My laptop. Even my books. Everything except the clothes on my back and the furniture. The door locked from the outside with a heavy bolt. I was a prisoner. That night, I heard my father shouting. The palace walls are thick, but rage travels. He was on the phone with Sheikh Abdullah. I couldn't hear the exact words, but I heard the tone.
Damage control.
Negotiation.
He heard my name. He heard the word apostasy.
I heard the wedding date mentioned. And I realized what my father was going to do. He was going to rush the wedding. Get me married to Sheikh Abdullah immediately, before word of my conversion could spread, before the scandal could ruin the alliance. Lock me into the marriage, and then deal with my spiritual problem later. Or let Sheikh Abdullah deal with it. Either way, I would be silenced, controlled, contained. The next morning, my mother came to my door. The guards unlocked it long enough for her to enter, then locked it again behind her. She stood just inside the room and looked at me with a mixture of pity and disappointment that cut deeper than any anger.
Lina, what have you done?
Her voice shook.
Mama, he found the truth.
I found.
You found nothing but distraction.
Your father has moved the wedding up.
You will marry Sheikh Abdullah in 3 days.
The ceremony will be small, private, immediate. And after you are married, you will never speak of this again.
Do you understand me?
3 days. 72 hours. Mama, please. There is no please. There is no escape.
You have made your choice, and now you will live with the consequences.
At least this way, you will be married into a respectable family. At least you will not be killed. Killed. She said it so matter-of-factly, as if it were a real possibility. Which of course it was. She left.
The door locked behind her.
And I was alone. For 2 days, I saw no one except the servants who brought food 3 times a day. They would not look at me. Would not speak to me. I was unclean. Contaminated.
A source of shame.
I prayed constantly.
Jesus, you promised.
You said you would open a door. You said you had a way out.
Where are you?
Please. Please. And I felt nothing.
Just the 4 walls of my room. Just the locked door.
Just the certain knowledge that in 72 hours, 60 hours, 48 hours, I would be married to an 81-year-old man, and my life as I had known it would be over. Have you ever trusted God for something impossible, and then watched the deadline approach with no sign of rescue? Have you ever believed in a promise, and then wondered if you were a fool for believing? On the day before my wedding, March 14, 2018, they came for me at noon. A team of women, stern-faced professionals hired to prepare brides. They brought the wedding gown. They brought makeup cases and hairstyling tools and jewelry boxes.
They stripped me, bathed me, dressed me like a doll.
The gown fit perfectly. The veil was so long it trailed 10 feet behind me. The jewelry was so heavy I could barely hold my head up.
Diamonds and gold. A queen's ransom. A gilded cage.
They painted my hands and feet with henna in intricate designs, a tradition for Muslim brides. The henna felt cold and smelled bitter. Each stroke of the brush felt like a mark of ownership. Property of Sheikh Abdullah bin Rashid. When they were done, they left me standing in front of the full-length mirror in my room, staring at a stranger. A beautiful stranger, draped in white and gold, who looked like she was already dead inside. That evening, my father came to my room. He dismissed the guards and closed the door behind him. We stood facing each other.
In my wedding finery.
He in his traditional thobe and bisht, the flowing robes of a Gulf nobleman. Tomorrow, he said, you will smile. You will say your vows. You will show gratitude and humility.
And you will never, ever mention your conversion to anyone again.
If you do, if you bring shame on this family in any way, there will be consequences that will make you wish you had obeyed me from the beginning. Do you understand? Yes, father. Sheikh Abdullah is aware of your indiscretion. He has agreed to continue with the marriage on the condition that you publicly renounce your conversion to Christianity. You will do this at the reception, in front of all the guests. You will declare that you made a mistake, that you were confused, and that you reaffirm your faith in Islam. Are we clear? So that was the price.
Public humiliation.
Public denial of Jesus.
Proof of my submission. And if he refuse?
I don't know where the courage to ask that question came from.
My father's face darkened.
Then you will be tried under Sharia law for apostasy. And the sentence for apostasy, as you well know, is death. At best, you will spend the rest of your life in prison. At worst. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. He left. The door locked behind him. And I was alone with my choice.
Deny Jesus and live as Sheikh Abdullah's wife. Or refuse, and die.
Is there really a choice in that equation? Wouldn't anyone choose life? But as I stood there in that wedding gown, surrounded by luxury, I realized that what my father was offering wasn't life. It was existence. It was breathing while everything that made me human slowly suffocated. Jesus had shown me what it meant to be loved, to be valued, to be free.
Could he go back to the cage now that you knew what freedom tasted like?
My mother came late that night. She didn't speak. She just held me while I cried, both of us knowing that in the morning, I would either be a bride or a criminal. There was no third option. After she left, I lay down on the bed in my wedding dress, too exhausted to take it off. The henna on my hands had dried. The patterns looked like chains.
He prayed one last time.
Jesus, I whispered into the darkness. I don't know what to do. In the morning, they're going to make me choose.
Life or death. Deny you or die.
And I want to be brave.
I want to be strong.
But I'm so scared. I'm 16 years old, and I'm so scared. If you really meant what you said in the dream, if you really have a way out for me, I need you to show me now. Because I can't see it. I can't see any way out of this. But I trust you. Even though I can't see the path, I trust you.
Whatever happens tomorrow, I'm yours.
I'm completely yours.
And then something strange happened.
Peace. The same supernatural peace I had felt after the dream. It washed over me like a wave, warm and sure and utterly illogical given my circumstances. I felt, for just a moment, like I was being held. Like invisible arms were wrapped around me, and a voice was whispering, I've got you. Trust me. I've got you. I fell asleep. And I slept more soundly than I had in months. I woke up at 3:33 in the morning. I know the exact time because I looked at the clock on my nightstand the instant my eyes opened.
3:33 di notte.
My room was filled with light. Not the soft glow of the nightlight I kept by the door.
Not moonlight through the window.
This was different. Bright but somehow soft. Warm. The kind of light that shouldn't exist in the physical world but does. I sat up in bed, still wearing my wedding dress, and I saw him. Jesus was standing at the foot of my bed. I'm not speaking metaphorically. I'm not describing a vision or a feeling or a sense of presence. He was there. Physical.
Real.
The same man from my dream, standing in my locked bedroom in a palace in the Middle East at 3:33 in the morning. He smiled at me. "It's time, Lena," he said. "Get up. I'm opening the door." I didn't question it. Didn't hesitate. I got out of bed, still in my wedding gown, and walked to the bedroom door. The heavy wooden door that was locked from the outside with a bolt and 2 guards stationed in the hallway.
He touched the handle. The door swung open.
Unlocked. The bolt was gone. And beyond the door in the dimly lit corridor, the 2 guards were slumped in their chairs, heads tilted back, mouths open, breathing deeply. Asleep. Both of them. The men trained to stay alert through 12-hour shifts. Asleep. I stepped into the corridor. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. The guards didn't move. I walked past them, my long veil trailing behind me, the silk whispering against the marble floor. I walked down the hallway toward the main staircase, and every servant's door stayed closed. Every bedroom remained dark. The palace was silent as a tomb. I descended the stairs. 3 flights.
My hand on the carved wooden banister. My bare feet silent on the steps.
At the bottom, I turned toward the east wing, following a pull inside my chest that felt like someone was guiding me by an invisible thread.
He walked through corridors uno and walked 1,000 times.
Past sitting rooms and dining halls and galleries hung with priceless art. Past security cameras mounted in corners. I found out later, from news reports, that every single camera in the palace experienced a simultaneous malfunction between 3:30 and 4:15 a.m. that morning.
Every single one. A £2 million security system.
Dead. For exactly 45 minutes. I reached the East Garden entrance. A door that led to the palace gardens, and beyond that, a service gate used by maintenance staff. The door required a key code. I didn't know the key code. I never had access to it.
He touched the door.
It opened. The gardens were silent. Palm trees swayed in a warm breeze.
The sky was still dark, stars bright overhead.
I walked across the garden to the service gate. A 12-foot-high iron gate, locked with an electronic system that required both a key code and a thumbprint scan.
He touched the gate. It swung open.
On the other side, idling quietly, was a small white sedan. And sitting in the driver's seat was a woman I had seen exactly twice in my life. Her name was Claire. She was a British expatriate who worked as a nurse for one of the families in the palace complex. I had met her briefly at a charity event 2 years ago. I didn't know her. She didn't know me. But she was there. At 3:47 in the morning. In front of a gate that should have been locked. Waiting. I ran to the car and got in. She looked at me, at the wedding dress, at my face, and she didn't ask questions. She just put the car in gear and drove. "I had a dream," she said after a moment, her voice shaking. 3 hours ago. I dreamed that a young woman in a white dress would need help escaping from the palace complex. I was told to come to this gate at 3:45 a.m. I was told to bring my passport, money, and a change of clothes. I thought I was losing my mind. But here you are. Here I was.
We drove through the empty streets.
The city was asleep. Claire took me to a safe house run by an underground network I didn't know existed. A network of Christians who help Muslim converts escape from countries where conversion is punishable by death. They had clothes for me. A passport with a different name. Plane tickets. Money. Everything arranged in a matter of hours, as if they had been waiting for me. "We've been praying for you," a woman told me. An Egyptian convert who ran the safe house. "We didn't know your name. We didn't know when you would come. But we've been praying for 3 months that God would send us someone to help."
And here you are.
At 5:30 a.m., I boarded a flight to Europe. I wore jeans and a sweater. My hair was uncovered. My face was scrubbed clean of the wedding makeup. The wedding dress was left behind in the safe house. I sat in seat 24C, a window seat, and watched the sun rise over the Arabian desert as the plane lifted into the sky. The sky turned from black to deep purple to orange to gold. And I cried. Not from fear.
Not from sadness.
From relief. From gratitude. From the overwhelming, crushing, beautiful weight of freedom. At exactly 6 a.m., the time my wedding was supposed to begin, I was 37,000 feet in the air. Flying away from everything I had ever known. Flying toward a future I couldn't see but trusted anyway. I found out later what happened that morning. My family discovered I was gone at 5:45 a.m., when the servants came to wake me for the final wedding preparations. The panic was immediate. They searched the palace. They questioned the guards, who swore they never fell asleep, that they were awake all night, but somehow I had vanished. They checked the security footage. Every camera showed nothing but static for 45 minutes. An impossible technical failure. My father mobilized everything. He called the police, the military, his contacts in the intelligence services. He put out alerts at every border crossing, every airport, every port. But I was already gone. Already out of his reach. Already in a country where his power meant nothing and his money couldn't touch me.
Sheikh Abdullah cancelled the wedding.
The scandal was enormous.
Whispers spread through the community.
The princess who ran away.
The girl who caused apostasy over duty.
My family issued a statement saying I had been kidnapped. Later, they said I was mentally ill. Anything to save face. Anything to avoid admitting that a 16-year-old girl had chosen Jesus over everything they could offer her. I landed in London 12 hours later. The Christian organization that helped me had connections with a refugee ministry. They helped me apply for asylum. They gave me a place to stay. They gave me a new name, new documents, a new identity. Lena was dead, as far as my family was concerned. And in a way she was. The girl who lived in that golden cage, who prayed to Allah and obeyed without question. She died the night Jesus opened that door. The woman who walked through it was someone new. Someone free. The first few months were the hardest. I had never been alone before. Never made my own decisions. Never cooked a meal or paid a bill or navigated public transportation. Everything was terrifyingly new. I would wake up in the middle of the night in the small apartment the ministry provided, and for a moment I would forget where I was. I would think I was back in the palace. And then I would remember. And I would cry. Sometimes from relief. Sometimes from grief for everything I had lost. My mother. My siblings. My language. My culture. Everything. But I was free. I started attending a small church in London. A community of believers who welcomed me without questions. Who loved me without conditions. They taught me what it meant to follow Jesus. Not as a set of rules to earn salvation, but as a response to grace already given. They showed me what the family of God looks like. Imperfect people united by faith in a perfect Savior. I met other converts from Islam. Men and women who had given up everything to follow Jesus. Their stories gave me courage. Their faith strengthened mine.
We prayed together.
We studied the Bible together. And slowly, piece by piece, I began to heal. I enrolled in college when I turned 18. I studied social work. I wanted to help people who were trapped the way I had been trapped. I wanted to be the door that Jesus had been for me. I graduated with honors. I got a job with a non-profit organization that helps Muslim women escape forced marriages and honor-based abuse.
Andy met David.
David was a volunteer at the organization. A British Christian who had spent 5 years working in refugee camps in Jordan and Turkey. He was kind, patient, gentle. Everything the men in my former life were not. He never pressured me.
Never demanded anything.
He simply loved me.
The way Jesus loved me.
Unconditionally. Completely. We were friends for 2 years before he asked me to dinner. Friends for another year before he told me he loved me. And when he proposed, kneeling in a park in London with a simple silver ring, he said, "Lena, I don't want to own you. I don't want to control you. I just want to walk beside you for the rest of my life.
Will you marry me?"
I said yes. We got married in a small church ceremony. 40 guests. No gold. No diamonds. No political alliances. Just 2 people who loved Jesus and each other, making vows before God. New family, my brothers and sisters in Christ, were there. They walked me down the aisle. They celebrated with us. They danced at our reception. And I wore a simple white dress that I chose myself. Not because someone told me to. Not because it cost a fortune, but because I wanted to. The difference between that wedding and the one I escaped is the difference between death and life. Between slavery and freedom. Between being owned and being loved. Today, I'm 23 years old. I've been married to David for 3 years.
We have a daughter.
Her name is Grace.
Because grace is what saved me.
Grace is what Jesus poured out when he opened that door. Grace is what I want her to know from the moment she takes her first breath. I work full-time with the organization that helped me. In the last 7 years, we've helped 43 women escape forced marriages. 43 women who were exactly where I was. Trapped. Terrified. Believing there was no way out. We have a network of safe houses across Europe and North America. We have legal teams that help with asylum applications. We have counselors who help with trauma. We have churches that welcome converts and help them build new lives. And every single woman we help, I tell her the same thing. You are not property. You are a daughter of God. You were created for freedom, for purpose, for love.
And Jesus sees you.
He hears you. And he will open a door for you. You just have to trust him enough to walk through it. I know some of you watching this are in impossible situations right now. Maybe not a forced marriage.
Maybe something else.
An abusive relationship. A family that controls every aspect of your life. A job that's destroying your soul. A future that feels like a prison sentence. And you've been praying for a way out, but you can't see one. You've been asking God to save you, but the door stays locked.
Can I tell you something?
Jesus is not limited by locked doors. He's not intimidated by security systems or family power or legal barriers or cultural expectations. He walked through locked doors after his resurrection. He can walk through the locked doors of your life too. But here's what you need to understand. When Jesus opens a door, you have to walk through it. Even when you're terrified.
Even when you don't know what is on the other side.
Even when it means leaving behind everything familiar. Faith isn't believing that God will make your life comfortable. Faith is trusting that God will be with you when he calls you to do something impossible. I walked away from palaces. From wealth. From family. From everything I had ever known. Was it hard? Yes. Do I have moments when I miss my mother, my siblings, the sound of Arabic, the smell of jasmine in the palace gardens? Yes. Do I have nightmares sometimes about what would have happened if that door hadn't opened? Yes. But I am free.
And freedom is worth everything uno lost.
Everything. If Jesus can disable a £2 million security system, put armed guards into supernatural sleep, guide a 16-year-old girl through a palace complex in the middle of the night, and orchestrate a rescue involving people who didn't even know each other but were all following the same divine instructions. If he can do all of that to save one girl who had nothing to offer him except a desperate prayer and a broken heart, then he can handle whatever impossible situation you're facing today. The question is not whether God can save you. The question is whether you're willing to trust him completely. Whether you're willing to walk through the door when he opens it. Whether you're willing to surrender everything, including your fear, and follow him into the unknown. Because here's what I've learned. The unknown with Jesus is safer than the known without him. The uncertainty of obedience is better than the false security of control. And the cost of following Jesus, no matter how high it seems, is nothing compared to the cost of walking away from him. I'm standing here today because Jesus kept his promise. He said he would open a door. And he did. Not in the way I expected. Not in the timing I would have chosen. But perfectly. Miraculously. Undeniably. So if you're in a situation that feels impossible, I want you to do what I did. Pray. Not just once but every day. Read the Bible. Get to know who Jesus really is, not who you've been told he is. Find a community of believers who will pray with you and support you. And when Jesus opens a door, no matter how terrifying it looks, walk through it. Run through it if you have to. Because on the other side of that door is freedom. Purpose. Life. You were not created to be owned. You were not created to be controlled. You were not created to live in a golden cage, no matter how beautiful the bars are. You were created to be loved by the God who made you. To walk in the purpose he designed specifically for you. To live in the freedom that Jesus died to give you. And if you don't know Jesus, if you've never heard his voice, if you've never experienced his love, I'm telling you right now, he's real. He's not a distant deity who doesn't care about your individual suffering. He's personal. He's close. He knows your name. He knows your story.
He knows the locked doors in your life.
And He wants to open them. All you have to do is ask.
Pray right now.
Tell Him you need Him. Tell Him you want to know Him. Tell Him you're ready to trust Him, even if you can't see the path. And then watch what He does. Because the same Jesus who opened a locked door in a palace in the Middle East at 3:33 in the morning can open the doors in your life too.
My name is Lina.
I was supposed to marry a man old enough to be my great-grandfather. I was supposed to spend the rest of my life as property, as a political pawn, as a woman without a voice or a choice. But Jesus had a different plan. And because He opened a door that no human being could have opened, I'm free today. I'm loved today.
He have a purpose today.
And He can do the same for you. Trust Him. He's already opening the door. You just have to be brave enough to walk through it.